We got a breaking and fast-moving story that, frankly, is the struggle for our constitutional republic. It's playing out now in Portland, Oregon, in a courtroom run by a Trump-appointed judge, Karen Immergut, who's being attacked as a traitor, as an insurrectionist by Donald Trump and his own people, because he doesn't like the fact that she issued a temporary restraining order that he then violated by sending in the California National Guard into Oregon, that he federalized in California, claiming he needed all those troops in order to quell the violence and stop the rebellion in California. Well, it looks like he could peel off 300 of them and send them to Oregon because he called Oregon war-ravaged, a comment the judge said was not tethered to reality, because Portland is not war-ravaged. It's not a place, it's not a hellhole. It's not a place where the military has to be marched in. Stephen Miller is lying to the American people. Donald Trump is lying to the American people. And Judge Immergut, she's just doing her job. So am I. You're on the Midas Touch Network and on Legal AF. Let's get right to the new reporting. Fast-moving story. So fast that I did an interview last night at about 10 o'clock Eastern time with the Attorney General of California, who joined the case, about his reaction to the hearing that the judge held Sunday night at 10 p.m. Eastern time. That's how fast moving this story is, but I wanted to update you on it now. How'd we get here? Donald Trump decided to continue to embarrass blue states and blue governors, and he moved on to Oregon with some phony stories about violence that's rampaging through Oregon, which is all a lie. I don't think anybody spilled a latte in Oregon, at least not in the last 5 or 6 months. Sure, there's First Amendment protests, which are not only allowed, but are encouraged under our Constitution. You're allowed to petition your government for a redress of grievances. You're allowed to assemble peaceably. You're allowed to express your First Amendment expression that you don't like what's going on behind the walls of an ICE detention center. It doesn't mean you end up in jail or that you're committing a federal crime that needs the National Guard to be militarized. So Judge Immergut looked at the full and complete record, unlike Stephen Miller sitting there in his armchair, with drawn shades in the White House. She has the record in front of her, and she determined there was only one federal ICE officer who had an altercation with somebody in resistance, and he subdued him with a taser, and that was the end of it. And that's it. There's like 20, 30 people on the street at best at the present time. But no, Donald Trump has to send in 300 California National Guard. But first, he tried to take over and federalize and commandeer the Oregon National Guard. He can only do that under a statute that Congress created called Section 12406. It is a barrier to protect the states from attacks and overreaching and power grabs by the federal government. So that's why it's there. It's not his commander-in-chief role. It's to stop him from taking over states and violating their sovereignty. So the only way you can take over a state National Guard is to find that there is a actual foreign country invasion. Take that off the board. 2, there's a rebellion, or there's so much activity on the street that the president can't execute on the laws of the federal government with his regular forces, his federal forces. Judge Immergut, after a hearing, said none of that is present. So block. Donald Trump then said middle finger, F you, to this Trump-appointed judge, and tried to send in a couple of hundred California National Guardsmen. He was only able to take over the California Guard for a limited time under the unique factual circumstances on the ground in California. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals didn't say, oh, by the way, you can take that circus on the road. You can take the National Guard on the road and go into other states. Donald Trump is like ready to bring in Texas. Remember how there were 7 different red states that sent in their National Guard as a show of support for Donald Trump to take over D.C.? He's trying to do it in Oregon. So when the judge found out about that, because California and Oregon joined together to file a new temporary restraining order, the judge held that Sunday night, last night hearing. And as he was going into the hearing, if you will. Both Donald Trump made a statement about her, about the judge, and let's play that clip.
If they put judges like that on, I wasn't served well by the people that pick judges, I can tell you. Things like that are just too bad. I appointed the judge and he goes like that. So I wasn't served well. Obviously, I don't know the judge. But if he made that kind of a decision, Portland is burning to the ground. You have agitators, insurrectionists. All you have to do is look at the television, turn on your television, read your newspapers. It's burning to the ground. The governor, the mayor, the politicians are petrified for their lives.
Right. It's always somebody else's fault. Oh, I was given misinformation. Judge Immergut is a quality candidate, a quality judge. She's been a state prosecutor, a federal prosecutor in California and in Oregon. She's worked for the Department of Justice. She's been a U.S. attorney. She's been a county district attorney. She's been it all. She's the kind of judge you want in that chair, whether you're Democrat or Republican. But that's not good enough. So as she was going into the hearing last night, I'm sure the words of Stephen Miller was ringing in her ear, where he called her effectively an insurrectionist. Here's what Stephen Miller had to say about the judge before she had the hearing. She said, the president is this is Miller. The president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, not an Oregon judge. Portland and Oregon law enforcement, at the direction of local leaders, have refused to aid ICE officers facing relentless terrorist assault. That's a lie. And threats to life. None of that is going on in Oregon. This is an organized terrorist attack, I guess, led by the judge. The judge is now a terrorist on the federal government and its officers. And the deployment of troops is an absolute necessity to defend our personnel and for the republic itself. So now the judge is an insurrectionist and a terrorist. What's next, Stephen? You're going to call for her hanging? Well, she held the hearing, and Rob Bonta, the Attorney General of California, came on for an exclusive interview with me, and here's what he had to say about the hearing. Let's roll the clip. And within hours, Judge Immergut set an emergency hearing and ruled from the bench. And who better to tell us about this than the Attorney General of California, who's joining us here, Rob Bonta. AG Bonta, thank you for joining Midas Touch.
Grateful to be with you, as always. Thanks.
Yes. So let's take it from your perspective. This was an Oregon case until about half a day ago, and then it became a California and Oregon case. You were on the hearing. It was by phone mainly. Yeah. Tell our audience what happened today and what Judge Immergut did and why you think it was correct.
Yeah, well, it was an Oregon case until today, though California, I, speaking directly with AG Rayfield and my team, talking to them, have been very closely communicating with them about what happened in LA with California since we were first. We've been supporting our fellow AGs as they face deployments of National Guard, whether it be DC or Oregon. And then today we got directly brought into the case with 300 federalized California National Guards people being moved 1,000 miles up north to Portland, where a judge had already said yesterday that the conditions on the ground absolutely do not justify the federalization of National Guard. They don't justify the federalization of Oregon National Guard. And so the federal government, in its ingenious thinking, said, well, her order, though it said there were no conditions to bring the National Guard, federalized National Guard to Oregon, applied to the Oregon National Guard. How about we bring in California National Guard? Maybe that will work. And she was completely miffed. I just listened in on the entire hearing. First of all, thank you to my incredible team, the incredible teams in Oregon and Portland. It was a team effort. Folks working overtime. Obviously, today's a Sunday, and democracy needs to be protected every day, and the rule of law does as well. And she was really miffed. Her first set of questions of the federal government were, how does this not violate my order from yesterday? And I think she's right, that this sort of super technical approach to try to bring National Guard in that's from another state and just minutes before the hearing commenced, we got word through a memorandum from Secretary Hegseth that the Texas National Guard has been federalized, 2,000 of them, with 400 of them being deployed to both Portland and Chicago. So it is clear that it's a sort of whack-a-mole approach from the federal government. You stop the Oregon National Guard from being federalized, we'll bring in the California National Guard. You stop the California National Guard from being brought up north, we'll bring in the Texas National Guard. You stop them, we got, who's got next? We got a bunch of others we can bring in. And so we asked her, the judge, to issue a broad order that applies to every National Guard in every state and the District of Columbia, and that none of them can be deployed, can be federalized and deployed to Oregon. And she issued that order from the bench. She's going to back it up with a written order as well. But she was concerned, based on the behavior of the federal government, about what the scope of her order should be, and believed, and I agree, that a broad order that is broad in scope is appropriate. So the conditions have not changed in 24 hours. National Guard being deployed in Oregon was unlawful yesterday. It's unlawful today as well. It doesn't matter where the National Guard comes from, whether they're Oregon's National Guard or California's or Texas's Guard. And so I think the judge nailed it. The Trump-appointed judge nailed it and looked at the facts, looked at the law, issued an order expeditiously, and appropriately stopped Trump from this unlawful conduct.
And thank you, A.G. Bonta. And what we've known from the past is there were about 7 red states that sent their National Guard into D.C. And I'm sure this is the same group that Donald Trump is trying to cycle through to try to find I don't even think he's trying to find a loophole. I think he's just openly defiant of Judge Immergut. And it sounds like she thinks that might have happened as well. Just to frame the issue, we have a judge who, yes, was appointed back in the first term of Donald Trump, but he's already blaming whoever the people were, at the Federalist Society or Leonard Leo or whoever led him astray because he doesn't like her particular rulings. And she framed the issue in her order on Saturday so perfectly. To my audience, I said it's 31 pages, but you really just need to read the first paragraph and one of her last paragraphs to understand it. In her first paragraph for our audience, she said on Saturday, and this, like you said, it was illegal then and it's illegal now. She said, this case involves the intersection of 3 of the most fundamental principles in our constitutional democracy. The first concerns the relationship between the federal government and the states. The second concerns the relationship between the United States Armed Forces and domestic law enforcement. And the third concerns the proper role of the judicial branch in ensuring that the executive branch complies with the laws and limitations imposed by the legislative branch. Whether we choose to follow what the Constitution mandates with respect to these 3 relationships goes to the heart of what it means to live under the rule of law in the United States. And then she ended it this way, and I'm sure this is sort of the animating force in her decision-making. She said at the end of her order on page 30 from Saturday, this country has a long-standing and foundational tradition of resistance to government overreach, especially in the form of military intrusion into civil affairs. Quoting from James Madison, address to the Constitutional Convention, a standing military force with an overgrown executive, well, we've got an overgrown executive, will not long be safe companions to liberty. The means of defense against foreign danger have been always the instruments of tyranny at home. This historical tradition boils down to a simple proposition. This is a nation of constitutional law, not martial law. Defendants have made a range of arguments that, if accepted, risk blurring the line between civil and military federal power to the detriment of this nation. That's the judge, right?
She nails it. She nails it.
She nails it.
She knows what's at stake. She knows what the issues are here. This Trump-appointed judge is doing her duty. She's following the facts, following the law. Let them chips fall where they may. You apply the law to the facts and make decisions, not influenced by ideology, political ideology, or who the president is or who appointed you. She's doing what her job is.
What was the department? I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry about that. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
What was the response? I mean, we always like to know our opponent. What was the response What's the government's position as to why they believe in good faith they could send in California, Texas, or any other National Guard given her earlier ruling? What did they say?
I didn't envy the federal attorney trying to defend this conduct. And honestly, he was having a hard time. And, he had his arguments, though, but the judge was pushing, and she was not happy. And she was saying, "You are an officer of the court, sir, and tell me why this doesn't violate my order from yesterday." And his argument was that this is not the Oregon National Guard. That's what your order yesterday applied to. This is the California National Guard. They've already been federalized, and they're just being repositioned from Los Angeles and California to Portland. And she was having none of that, and not buying any of that hyper technical approach. She was getting to the substance, and I think she was likely offended, though she didn't show it. She was very professional and had outstanding demeanor by this effort to end run.
So the judge entered the second temporary restraining order. I have all of it up on Legal AF Substack for you to review. The new temporary restraining order is in place until the middle of October for about another 14 days. And by the end of October, on the 29th of October, she's holding a trial about all of this and to put a permanent injunction in place. She's going to combine the preliminary injunction hearing with a trial on the merits on the 29th of October. We'll try to get the audio. We'll try to put it up here on Legal AF so everybody can listen to it. And I'll do the commentary around it. But this is a fast-moving story. Watch me on Legal AF Substack. Take a moment, subscribe there as well, where I'll be doing live reporting. This is moving so quick. I did 3 videos yesterday, one right after another. Got the Attorney General Rob Bonta to join us. Did that interview, and it struck midnight. So if you want to be involved, you want to be a card-carrying member of Legal AF community, you're here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Come on over and become a paid member of the Legal AF Substack world. That keeps all this content coming to you. Thanks for being here. I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.